Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to have a look at Jamboard. We were a little bit late starting because I was getting so engrossed in everyone's favourite Netflix shows, so keep them coming. Thanks for sharing. I know probably like a lot of us presenting today, we were keen to hear some new ideas. I think being at home has probably led to a lot more TV consumption over the past few weeks. Anyway, we'll get on with the webinar for today. We're going to take a look at Jamboard. And for those of you that don't know what Jamboard is, hopefully by the end of it you will. But I will go into a little bit more of an explanation about Jamboard shortly. So today on the webinar, we have myself. So I'm Kiri. I am the National Accounts Manager in the Google for Education team. For those of you that have been tuning into the webinars regularly, we're seeing some familiar faces in the live chat. So hello, you already know who I am. But basically my role looks after Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and London. We also have Emma Pass and Ben Whitaker, who are both Google certified trainers, and they are from our professional development partner EdTech team. And these guys are going to be actually demoing Jamboard and showing you different ways that you can use it. We also are joined by Leo Academy Trust today. So for those of you that have maybe tuned into some of our webinars before or maybe have been to some of our events, you may recognise these faces. Rachel and Graham, both working on technology within Leo Academy Trust, and they're going to be sharing specifically how they're using Jamboard to continue learning at home for students and hopefully give you some great ideas that you can take away today. So we have a great agenda. I'm going to quickly do a bit of a recap about the resources available to you, particularly if you're new at starting out with G Suite. We're going to get hands-on with Jamboard, then we'll hear from Leo Academy Trust, and throughout we'll stop and pause and give an opportunity to ask questions. So, what is Google for Education? So Google for Education is essentially these three different products. So we have G Suite for Education, which is basically your set of productivity tools, and Jamboard is actually covered within G Suite for Education and covered by your terms and conditions of using G Suite for Education. So it's what we call a core tool, and if you want to know a little bit more about that, I can post a link to what a core service is. We also have Chromebooks. These are devices. You may have seen them, you may have heard of them. Essentially, they are devices that are great because they boot up in less than 10 seconds. They don't need additional software or antivirus, and we're seeing them really widely used across the world. For example, they're the #1 selling device in US education and in Sweden and in the Netherlands. So lots of good uses of Chromebooks. As in all the rest of the webinars that we've had so far, these are really a G Suite focused webinar series. So we won't be diving too deep into Chromebooks or devices, but if you are interested to learn more, again, please pop any questions on the side in the live chat and we can hopefully get you an answer. And finally, we have Google Classroom. So most people that I'm speaking to at the minute are saying that they're using Google Classroom. That's kind of their go-to tool for doing online learning. And basically, it's a tool that allows you to set assignments, to send out resources, to give feedback, and is a great tool for teachers to use and kind of brings together G Suite really nicely. So if you are interested in that, we have lots of webinars that we've done already that are pre-recorded and are live and available to watch, and we'll share the link with you shortly. Here it is. So as I said, we've already been doing lots of webinars in this series. So they are all in one place stored ready to go. And if you were sent links to them before, you can simply just go back to that YouTube link and watch them. Or you can head over to this bit.ly link /GFE UK webinars. And you'll see that there's a ton of past webinars on there that you can go back and look at your own leisure. Things like Google Classroom and Google Meet are in there. And any upcoming ones, including today's, will be hosted there. When you head over to that website, you'll also see that we have something called virtual office hours. So this is an opportunity for senior leaders and IT leaders to come in and basically have some one-to-one time with Google experts just to ask any questions that you might have or to get some help and advice about getting set up with G Suite. So you'll find that on this website as well, plus a ton of other resources that might be relevant to your local area. So make sure you go and have a look. We've also created something called a Teach from Home Hub, which basically is a website that takes teachers to relevant resources to help them with teaching from home. It's a temporary hub, so it's not something that we necessarily see that will keep going after school closures and the coronavirus crisis, but it is available right now. So similarly to the webinar content that we're doing, things like the Jamboard webinar, it will actually take you out to content relevant for learning more about how to use the tools. So definitely one to share, definitely one to go and have a look at. And teachfromhome.google is how you get there. In addition to that, we do have, and for those of you that already use G Suite, you've probably been to this website before, but we have something called the Teacher Centre. And this is full of training. I actually went on there today. I was looking for some Google Forms training, funnily enough. Did a quick search, Google Forms training in Teacher Centre, and it brought up a ton of videos and different things that you can do and the ways that you can use Google Forms. So if you haven't seen it already, or you haven't been there and you're kind of a little bit confused about how to get started, or you just want a bit of help in maybe a little bit of advanced training on certain things, definitely check out the Teacher Centre. And if you're really keen, we also have certification, so you can become a level 1 or level 2 educator and work your way right up to a certified trainer like the people that we have on the call today. So definitely want to check out and to share with your colleagues as well. And in addition to that, we have, which is part of the Teacher Centre, we have a kind of new series really of email training sessions that can be sent out to staff, or staff can sign up for. And basically it's short snippets of training on different tools. So it starts with Google Drive and it takes you right through to Classroom and Gmail. And basically it gets emailed to your inbox, and it's kind of short, quick, snappy training and videos on how you can get started. Really good for this current climate when everyone's working from home and they don't necessarily have someone in person to go and talk to. So definitely worth going to have a look at. And if you aren't sure where to find them, just let us know and we can post them in the chat later on. So today, as I said, we're going to be looking at Jamboard specifically, and just to give a quick overview of what Jamboard is for those of you that don't know before we dive straight into how to use it. Essentially, Jamboard is a digital whiteboard, and it allows you to collaborate. So essentially, you could set a Jamboard up with your class and they could collaborate on it together, and it can serve a couple of purposes. So you'll see from Leo Academy's trusts later on, the ways that they're using it, and that they're actually using it to visualize concepts. So things like maths equations, right? If you're not actually able to be in a classroom with a group of students and you're trying to get across how to work out an equation, you can actually achieve that by using Jamboard. And we also have Meet integration. So if you're using Google Meet to deliver live lessons, for example, you might be able to actually show that live to a student or to a group of students using Jamboard. So it's a really great kind of virtual digital whiteboard tool. And we're seeing also lots of use cases with things like drawing and adding images from the web. And our trainers will show you how you can do that. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Ben, who is going to show us how you can use Jamboard on the app. Sorry, I got that wrong. Ben is going to show us how I'm right, Ben. No, you're going to show
the web version.
The web version. Thanks, Ben. I'm so glad you're here. So we're going to have a look at the web version of Jamboard first. Over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Kiri. My name is Ben Whitaker. I work over in the north of England and representing EdTech Team UK today. So I'm going to talk to you about the Jamboard. Jamboard is a web app as well as a Chromebook app and a kiosk screen as well. I'm going to talk to you about the free web version that you can use. So essentially, as Kiri just mentioned, this is an interactive whiteboard and allows you to do brainstorming, allows you to do some group collaboration, and allows you to think through some ideas. So one of the examples that we use is when we are doing teacher training, perhaps, or professional development. We ask them to think about how they might use a whiteboard in a lesson normally. And then here is an example of how teachers have said that they might use starter and main class activities and plenaries, and what they might use the Jamboard for to do that. So as you can see, I've used some sticky notes here, but right at the top, you can navigate between different frames, which is just different, sometimes called jams. And right on here, if you had a stylus enabled device, you can write on here. I'm just literally writing with my mouse. That's why it doesn't read like anything exciting. I can use that as an eraser if I wanted to as well. From there, I can also add post-it notes, sticky notes. Post-it notes, obviously that's copyrighted. Sticky notes is the correct term. So if I wanted to put some ideas on here, I can also do that too. So if I wanted to share some ideas around teacher development or ideas that I might want to use. So for example, we might want to be talking about Google Educator exams, because that's something that my staff are working on currently. So that adds it to the page. And then if I wanted to suggest that we want to do some work around classroom, or they might want to do some work around forms, or simply maybe not a Google tool, they might want to do something around behavior management. So what it does there is it allows us to quickly generate ideas, where you might use post-it notes as questions in a professional development setting or in a training setting. But what we're doing here is creating a resource that's digital that we can use again and come back to and save directly native into Drive. From there, I'm going to show you some examples of how this can be used as a tool. So up in Drive, I was saying it stores natively in Drive. So this is my work Google Drive. I can create new and more, and directly within there is Jamboard. So I can open up a brand new jam from scratch. And it creates a brand new untitled jam that saves directly into my Google Drive. Not only that, is it works natively within Google Classroom. So I've created 2 assignments here in Google Classroom. And the example that I used earlier, where I use Jamboard, I might ask them, a member of staff, to add ideas as to how you might use Jamboard in a class. So for example, I can pick that out of my Google Drive, select the jam that I'm talking about, and then because I want staff or students, in this case, to be able to edit and work on the same Jamboard, I can set it as the students can edit that file, and then this document here that I had open would be a collaborative document between all the people that had edit access onto it. Not only that, if I want to make this an idea that students can create their own version of a jam, I can create a template that I'm going to ask them to do. So I was an RE teacher for a long time, and although this is quite a crazy ethical idea, we used to talk about blood sports and why that was important and whether that should be legalized or not. It was a common debate that we would have. So I could create a jam template that I wanted them to do, give them some initial ideas, and add them to this jam. But rather than asking them to view that file or edit that file, I might want to make a copy for each student. And if I made a copy for each student, what that would do is allow you to have Jamboard that is their specific assignment. So this could be a planning tool for an assignment. This could be a planning for a debate or a discussion. It could be sharing of ideas around a project. I've seen lots of ideas in A-level media around, they might watch a video and shared ideas around that as well. So Jamboard is very much a tool that allows you to collaborate and share ideas on what would normally have been potentially a piece of paper where you might mind map. You're doing this digitally, saves it natively within Drive, shares it natively within Classroom, and allows those images and interactivity to go beyond the hour of the classroom or the PD session. One other thing that Kiri mentioned within the web app is the opportunity to add images. So if I wanted to do a Google, I could select files from my device, or if I wanted to do a Google image search, I won't search for blood sports, but obviously because of the settings that are on, it has got Google Safe Search on because of the nature of the domain that I'm in. But if I wanted just to find a royalty-free, copyright-free image of a tree. I can add that image in there and it will just load it in. And if I want to perhaps duplicate that, I can do that. I can make this bigger, smaller, spin it round, whatever I need to do to make that a file that we can talk about. So for instance, if I wanted to do a labeling activity on here, I could then get students, if they have devices, to label the different elements of this. I know I've seen this used in geography for V-shaped valleys or something similar. And it's a very, very quick way of annotating images. I'm going to hand over to Emma, who's going to talk about some of the different functionality that is in the Jamboard app.
Here we go. Hi, thank you, Ben. Okay, so as Ben mentioned, what he was showing you was the web version of Jamboard. It's important to keep in mind with Jamboard that there are different versions of it depending on your access to device. So the nice thing about the web version is as long as you have access to the internet, you have access to Jamboard, and that is awesome. However, if you do have a Chromebook, a tablet, or even just a smartphone, you can download the Jamboard app, and that's going to give you some further functionality within the file. So I'm going to jump into my Google Play Store. I'm on a Chromebook right now. So if I were trying to find the Jamboard app on the Play Store, I would just search for Jamboard. And then I already have it installed, but this is where you would install it. Similarly, if you're on an iPad or an iPhone, you could just go to the App Store, search for Jamboard, and download. Once you have it downloaded, I'm going to go into my apps here. And at the very bottom, you might see my Jamboard icon. This is now opening up the Jamboard app on my Chromebook. Down at the bottom right, you can see a little plus sign here. This is where I'm going to open a new Jam file within the app. And it looks really similar to what Ben was already showing you. So we already see at the top our little feature to scroll in between jams. On our left-hand side, you see our toolbar, similar to what Ben was showing us. And now I'm just going to show you some of the different features that we have within the app version. So starting with the pen tool, you noticed all of the pens that Ben showed you already, and we have our different pen types. So we have our marker with our different colors. We have our paintbrush, right? All those different strokes are still available in the app version. However, down at the bottom here, we also have what's called assistive drawing tools. And it's kind of small, but if you notice just at the very bottom there, there's a little arrow pointing out. When I click that, I have 3 versions of different assistive tools within the pen. Assistive tools meaning that there is some sort of artificial intelligence working in the background to try and help me do better. And that's in 3 different ways. The first way, with those little A's and the little star above it, this is our handwriting tool. When I click into that, what it's going to do is it's trying to help me make my handwriting look a little nicer. And if you're a teacher used to writing on the whiteboard, this might feel like a huge win for you. It does for me, for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up a word. And you can see my handwriting is not great. But what the artificial intelligence does is it recognizes that I was writing banana, and it turns it from my chicken scratch into a nice piece of text. Another nice thing about this handwriting feature is it allows you to correct mistakes. So if we accidentally had an extra N in there, what I could do with my finger, and I'm going to make a motion starting at the bottom to top, a little diagonal swipe with my finger. I'm just going to swipe that N, and it will remove itself from the word. Alternatively, you saw me do this. If you need to insert an additional letter, you just draw that letter below with a little caret symbol on top. Caret symbol is just like that triangle shape. So I'm going to draw my little N, caret symbol, and it will insert the letter directly into the word. So swipe and caret allows you to make those kind of adjustments if you're making mistakes in your handwriting. We can also, with 2 fingers, tap the word and expand our fingers to resize or contract to make it smaller. And then if I pull my 2 fingers down, we see a trash can at the very bottom that will delete the word entirely. So handwriting feature, really nice. However, there is more. When I click back into my assistive drawing tools, the next option is a shape feature. So I'm not a maths teacher, I am an English teacher, so my shapes might not be great, but we'll see. When I draw a circle, not the best, but again, the app will transform it into a slightly nicer feature. We can always change the color here, so I can make a triangle. Very nice, et cetera, et cetera. You might be using this as a math teacher to find the area of a shape, radius, circumference, doing geometry style assignments. You could also just use this to make nice straight lines if you are, asking them to write their name on a line. And you can also use this to attach shapes for maybe like a graphic organizer type assignment. So I could link these 2 shapes here together. Oops, that didn't look great. Bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a little undo button. This is my friend. I'm gonna undo that shape. Ooh. I could connect these 2 shapes here with a line. And then maybe like Ben showed us already with our sticky note image or feature, I might write an idea on my sticky note and drag it into my shape to create kind of graphic organizer. I'm going to go ahead and scroll to a new jam just so we look nice and clean and show you the 3rd and final assistive feature. And I'm going to change my color just for fun. The 3rd one is looks like a little pen with a star on top of it. This is actually called auto draw. And the same idea is it's going to try and help me make my drawing better. So I'm going to start by drawing a little, and if you see at the bottom, it's starting to suggest images to me. So if I'm not the best artist, it will say, hey, maybe you want to use one of these clip art drawings. And I was in fact trying to draw a banana because I've got a little banana theme going on today. I think still hungry for breakfast since I'm in the States and it's the morning time. Additionally, maybe I'll try and do a little bit more of an advanced drawing. Here's my monkey. As you can tell, I'm not an arts teacher either. And at the bottom, it's saying, oh, it looks like maybe a bear, a seahorse. Let's see if the tail helps at all. Oh no, I'm getting further. No, there it is. Here's our monkey. And then we have a nice little monkey that, again, I can 2-finger tap to resize. Similarly with the banana, I can 2-finger tap and move that over to the monkey. So nice little feature there. This time, instead of showing you a new jam, I'll show you how to clear your screen if you want to start over. Right below our auto draw feature in our left-hand toolbar, I have my eraser tool. I can use this to erase as Ben showed me, or if I hold that down, I can clear the frame completely. So if I just want to start over, I could say, let's clear that frame. So that was the pen tool with all of the assistive drawing features and writing features. Now we'll look at the plus sign at the very bottom. This is where we'll find a couple more additional tools within the app version. Sticky note, Ben showed you. He also showed you images. However, at the very bottom, there is a sticker feature within the app, which is kind of nice, especially if you're using Jamboard to assess work. There's stars and check marks that you can insert directly into the jam to show your students, where they're doing a nice job. And we can move that around. In my plus sign, once again, you'll also notice there's a camera embedded directly into the Jamboard. So you can have your students take pictures. In this case, I'll do a little monkey face. Beautiful. I can insert that directly into the jam. And then the nice thing about inserting images and pictures into Jamboard, as Ben sort of mentioned earlier, is that you can annotate directly on top of those. So if I want to draw right onto my image, I can do that there. Finally, in that plus sign one more time, within the app, you have the option to insert content directly from your Google Drive. So that's not just images, but that's any file type within your drive. I'm going to jump into my Google Drive here. And you'll see I have PDFs and slide decks and Google Docs. And I can scroll through and I can find a piece that I want my students to be able to interact with directly. So I have here a little assignment. This is more of a primary assignment. And what you'll see is when I insert something from my drive, it kind of enters itself in really small. So I'm going to use my 2 fingers again to kind of enlarge my screen, get a little closer to that file. And then what you need to do is you need to take the file and put it directly into the Jam. So I'm going to double tap. And you'll see here, my screen is kind of flashing now. This means I can grab the file. I'm going to do that with 1 finger, pull it over to my Jam, and then I can scroll out. I don't need this little blinking window anymore because I've already grabbed that file. So I'm going to exit and even click my top 3 dots, the little snowman there, and say I'm going to delete that because I've got my file here. 2 finger expands to enlarge. And now, right on our Jam, we have a worksheet. This was a PDF file worksheet that I can now have my students write directly on. So if you have a lot of paper-based worksheets that you're used to using with your students, with the app, you can put them right on the Jamboard and have your students do that handwriting or that drawing that you would typically have them do on paper. In this case, I could write here. This is with my finger. And I'm going to grab my pen tool, change the color, and I might write, I can. And as you can see, my handwriting is not great. So maybe this is where you start to incorporate some digital skills. Teach your students how to use that assistive drawing tool to help them with handwriting. And we can say, I can. And that might look a little bit nicer. Additionally, we can put those skills together with our assistive draw tool, and we can draw the monkey that we did before down here. There we go. And so not only are you using some of your paper-based products, but you can also now be incorporating some more digital skills with your students. I like to use that add one more time in the left-hand toolbar, add from drive content, to insert all types of files into my Jamboards. Not only worksheet PDF style, but also taking slide presentation, and you could annotate directly on your presentation. So you could project Jamboard in front of the classroom once we're back in classrooms, and you can be writing directly on your slides as you present, and then save those files and give them to your students. Ben already demonstrated how to share on Google Classroom. I'll also just mention up here in the top right-hand corner, there's a couple more share options. The first one is this one that looks like kind of a little TV screen. This is if you had an actual Jamboard kiosk. There's a device, really beautiful kind of smartboard device. So if you are using one of those, you could share this file right onto your device. However, for most of us, we're just using our computers or our Chromebooks or our tablets. So we could click our more options, our stoplight there. And then there's a couple of different ways that we can share this file. So we can make a copy of it. We can add people directly to it. We can save it as a PDF. So if you're having your students do a lot of drawings and kind of posters here, you could save those as PDFs and print them. And similarly, you can share them directly as images. One last thing I want to mention, that's at the very, very top here where we see our slides. If you click the down arrow just below our slides, you'll see kind of an overview, but you'll also see that stoplight again behind the slides. When you click onto that, you have the option of changing the background. So we can do a lined background for handwriting, a graph background for maths. We can do a Blackboard background if you want to do kind of a traditional Blackboard style jam. And you have the option to do that individually or apply that background to all your jam files. Really quickly, before I hand off to the Leo Trust, I just want to show you one more time kind of an overview of the differences between Jamboard. So over here on the left-hand side, if you have the Android app, so that's a Chromebook or an Android phone, you have access to all of these tools, and you'll see that list is a bit longer than if you have the iOS device, slightly more limited, versus the web version, which is the most limited. However, as I've been training on Jamboard for a little over a year, I've noticed that each of these lists keeps growing. So the more time goes on, the more features each of them has. And that's it from me. I'm going to pass it back and answer any questions that we have.
Thanks, Emma. Just to really give you and Ben a huge shout out, because that's not easy to show an app as well when we're doing a live demo, as well as like the fact that we have a kind of web version and an app version. So just really well done. And that was, I think we covered nearly everything you can possibly do. In fact, maybe everything in Jamboard. And I think it will be really interesting to see in the comments maybe how people might start to think about how they're using Jamboard and for different use cases. There were a couple of questions that came in, and I actually think that that last slide did answer quite a few of them. So there's obviously differences in terms of features that are available on the web version and the iOS version, and then the version that you can get on a Chromebook, for example. And actually that's probably where most of your feature set is going to sit, and that's what Emma was showing us. We had a couple of questions. So one was that I'm just trying to find back now, but one was, can you embed YouTube videos? Was one of the questions.
Not currently.
No, you can't add video.
No. Good. Okay, thank you. So the one thing that I did say to someone earlier was these feature requests are really great. And basically in every single feature within any G Suite product, whether that be Classroom or Jamboard or whatever one that you're using, if there's something that you want to be able to share, I've just come up at the bottom and told you to share your feedback. So please do it. Yeah, please share your feedback on the feedback button, and you'll find that in any G Suite tool that you're using. So things like embedding YouTube videos. Another question was asked around, can you make the pages bigger, I think was one of the questions earlier on, or change the size of the pages, I think was one of the questions. I can't find it now. Amazing. Someone in the background doing all this great work for me. Yeah, can you change the page size layout? You can't do that at the moment. So again, just please give that feedback. Our product team do read every single piece of feedback that comes in, and they will email you if something that you've requested is then released. So yeah, keep them coming, and maybe collate some friends on this live stream and get everyone to give that same feedback. I think actually we're probably done. I mean, you covered everything in so much detail that I think we're probably there with questions. So thank you both for joining today. I'm going to now pass over to Leo Academy Trust. So we have Rachel and Graham, who's now going to talk to you about some kind of almost more real life use cases about how a school and how schools and teachers at Leo are actually using Jamboard for distance learning. So over to you guys.
Thanks, Kiri. And I guess it's just really useful to start by saying a huge thanks to Ben and to Emma for that demonstration. I think probably the one thing I got out of that is just the wide variety of ways that Jamboard can be used in teaching and learning. So thank you for that, and adding to my to-do list. Next. So just before we get into Jamboard, I just thought it'd be useful to provide you with a bit of an overview of who we are as an organisation. On the live stream, I recognise lots of the names, so apologies for anybody that's already heard me say this, that we're 6 academies spread across 7 sites with just over 3,500 pupils. What is important to say here, though, is that we spent a lot of time preparing our strategy and sharing that strategy with our key stakeholders. And I think when we go on to share with you some examples of that, I think it's very important you're mindful that this has been a long journey for us, and we haven't done this overnight. So in terms of our strategy, what is it that we're trying to deliver for our children in our schools? And of course, like every school, there's a number of things we want to do. So the first most important aspect of our strategy is that we provide education to children regardless of their device access, wherever they are at whatever time. And when we come on to talk about distance learning, we'll see how that's only been amplified with importance. Of course, in order for us to implement technology in our classrooms, it needs to be useful. It needs to add quality to our teaching, and equally, it needs to act as an enabler for children's learning, not something that is another obstacle for staff to overcome. As a primary only mapped with children from nursery up to year 6, having a platform and having a system that every child could use is really, really important to us. So Jamboard's a prime example of that, but the G Suite tools are fantastic for allowing children of all ages to engage. And finally, whatever we provided our staff had to be easy to use, because whilst we had some capacity to deliver CPD, clearly, like lots of schools, there isn't an unlimited amount of time and money. So we had to make sure that our implementation was really robust in that sense. So we're in a really, really fortunate position where we'd spent the last 4 years forming our strategy, 3-4 years forming our strategy, getting help, getting staff on board, looking at cloud-based adoption, thinking differently about teaching, recognizing that a lot of our teaching involved a teacher standing in front of a smart notebook or a PowerPoint or a Google Slides and presenting. But recognizing that whilst this was one really effective way of teaching, there are many ways that a teacher can engage and educate children. And so what we wanted to do was take all of this great teaching and change that to enhance it even further. Obviously, the challenge that came for us when we moved to distance learning was how do we take that model how do we take that model of teaching and deliver that remotely? And there's 3 things really that we wanted to do with Jamboard. One was provide creativity to our children. We were very keen that our distance learning provision shouldn't be a sequence of lots of worksheets or a sequence of lots of questions that were of a similar nature. And we wanted to provide children with that creative ways to respond. We needed something that was flexible. So we needed a tool that we could use that could be used with English, could be used with maths, computing, music, etc. Because the focus had to be on learning and not on learning the tool. And finally, our last aspect was collaboration, and that we wanted children, although they weren't in the same classroom, but to be able to work collaboratively using the internet. Clearly, this is a different sort of collaboration than when you sit next to your best friend on the table next to you in class. But Jamboard was the solution that we've chosen to adopt for these 3 reasons. I'm going to pass over to Rachel, who will share with you some of the kind of more practical examples of how we're using Jamboard across the trust.
Thanks, Graham. So this is just going to take you through one of our teachers who you've probably seen if you've joined one of our webinars before. So Cheryl's just delivering a maths lesson here, and you can see just how easy she's pulled in her slide content or a PDF to be able to use, and that she uses that laser pointer that you can see on the screen to go through and annotate content and to talk through while she's doing that during the lesson. And that laser pointer does come really in handy in a similar way that when we're in the classroom, we'd probably go through and highlight some key points on a board at the front of the classroom. So being able to sort of move that content around and talk through using Jamboard is really helpful for our children there. And again, just that whole context of being able to manipulate and move objects, especially within a maths lesson. This was something that we noticed, that not only do we want the teachers to be able to do this as they demonstrate the lesson, but also for the children to be able to engage and manipulate those objects as well. And you'll see as well that she's also used those sticky notes to be able to add in any sort of reminders or pointers there to be able to work through that content. equally just verbalizing exactly what she's doing when doing it, so that that lesson suddenly becomes a very interactive content, and setting up those multiple slides or jams within there is also really helpful. So I'm going to go in and you can see now, just that use of the pen tool there to be able to write and go through exactly what she's saying during that lesson there. So you'll see that content come through as well. So I'm going to jump into an English example now. And again, you'll see here just that use of sticky notes, as well as having images of text. So Christopher here is sort of using that option to be able to grow and expand content to really highlight it for the children there. And I think this is probably one of the great features within Jamboard that you sort of lose if you're just teaching from sort of a notepad or just a slide deck. So that ability to sort of zoom in on any content and enlarge it is really helpful for children to gain an understanding of what it is that they need to be looking at, as well as being able to talk through those ideas there. And again, being able to quickly pull in content meant that for our teachers, they didn't suddenly have to recreate everything because they already had this saved within their Google Drive, and just that synchronous of being able to pull any content from the drive there and use it within the lesson really does make for sort of easily delivery, especially during distance learning. And you'll see here just how those sticky notes have been added to talk about those conjunctions within the lesson. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump in and show from the app perspective of using Jamboard there. So this is just a student's example of them completing a written task. Again, this was pushed out using Classroom, and this allowed the pupils to be able to engage and reflect on what it was that they've done. Again, using the pen tool there, they've been able to write in any content there, as well as using any pictures and sticky notes as well. And you'll see that when I go through looking at the different contexts there, we've got that the child's gone and found some pictures to be able to put in, as well as using those sticky notes here to quickly highlight any key areas to note there as well. Again, going through suggesting ideas of good and bad, and you can see here that the teacher's gone in and been able to feedback. So that collaborative aspect is not just between the pupils, but also between that teacher and the pupil as well, in terms of being able to give feedback on what they've done. Again, here you'll see that the pupils actually gone in and used that assistive pen to be able to quickly create a more visual appeal through Jamboard there. So I'm going to jump back and just talk through a maths lesson now. So again, this is another pupil's work, and you'll see just how easy it is that they've been to go through and label those images. Again, this has just been created and added in as an image by the teacher there. And then using those sticky notes to be able to talk through what it is that's actually taking place there. So again, I can just go through really easy. These are just worksheets that the teacher has added in through their drive, and this means that the pupil can then quickly go through and annotate any content if needed during that lesson there. And you'll see there that they can quickly go in and annotate as and when needed. Again, you'll see that the pupil here has quickly been able to sort of highlight their key number facts just using that Jamboard there as well. Again, sort of another idea, I've got a descriptive writing task. So using that visual prompt that we'd often have to sort of give to the pupils to use, and then start to mind map those words. So this sort of allows them to think about the questions And again, this is just added in through Google Drive, that integration there within the Jamboard app. Being able to quickly go through and add in grammar and punctuation using those annotations within Jamboard. And then again, starting to come up with those sentences and going again and actually starting to develop the story. So you'll see here that the pupil has gone in and actually started to develop their writing in that sample there.
Hi, done?
Yeah, thank you.
You finished so well there. I was just like, is she going to say anything else? There are so many ideas going through. Thanks for sharing that. I think what I found really interesting is actually like you're obviously using Jamboard not just for one thing, right? Like it's clearly not just one teacher using Jamboard for one particular use case. So thank you for sharing the different ideas about how it can be used. We've had some good questions coming in. I thought it would be nice to bring everyone back for the last sort of 10 minutes just to kind of shoot some questions out, just because I think everyone will maybe have different ideas, and considering actually that you're all working in education organizations at the moment, you're all teaching or at least supporting teaching and learning in actually different types of schools and colleges, right? So we have a good variation here. So it would be good to maybe get some of your thoughts on some of the answers to these questions. So the first one that I wanted to just kind of draw our attention to was someone talking about moving away from smart or like a traditional kind of interactive whiteboard environment. I think I know that some people on this call right here now have already had have made this move, or maybe thinking about making this move, or have already done that analysis. What are your thoughts on this, and what advice might you give? Graham, sorry, I'll pass over to you first.
Yeah, so I get asked this fairly often about Smart Notebook and do we need Smart Notebook? How do we use Smart Notebook, etc., etc. And I generally believe it's one of those questions that people ask because they don't know any better or they don't know any different, certainly. And if you're a teacher that's always used Smart Notebook, as far as you're concerned, that's the normal. The way that we approach these sort of conversations is to talk about pedagogy and learning, and to recognise that what we're trying to do is use technology to enhance our teaching and learning. And if Jamboard can do that, then clearly we'll use Jamboard. If Jamboard can't do that, then clearly we'll use a different tool. So, like I guess similar to you, we've had lots of questions about that. And my advice to you is think about what impact it's having on learning and what the right tool is to develop learning in the best way possible. But I realise every school's got a slightly different approach to how teaching and learning occurs.
Anyone want to jump in on that?
All I would say is that as I would echo what Graham was saying about right tool for the right job. And if your school is embedded into using smart tools, that's think very carefully before moving across. What I've found is there hasn't been many use cases that I've needed any other tool other than this. So being able to put my slides on there, annotate over there, be able to save that, export that out as a PDF, drag and drop files within there. It's worked for me for the functions I've needed, but that doesn't mean that it work for everybody.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to move on to another question. This is a really interesting one, and we might not ask this specific question, but I think I'll probably pose a different question based on what's been asked. But obviously, someone's content is king, right? So everyone wants content and everyone wants pre-created stuff. I think I would love to hear what has been the process for your teachers creating Jamboard lessons or creating activities to use Jamboard? Has it been a huge uplift? And I think a lot of you have already talked to how you can reuse resources and add it in and kind of do it that way. What would be your top tip for a teacher who's kind of starting out with Jamboard, hasn't got any content created? What would their first step be, Emma?
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of pre-created Jamboard lessons, there's not maybe one resource that has just templates, but there are some resources for you. So the Google Teacher Center does have a lot of great resources in terms of lesson ideas that other teachers are sharing. There's a website called Workbench, which is also integrated with Google, that has a lot of pre-created Jamboard lessons in it as well. Those are specifically designed around design thinking, but a really great resource. And then in terms of pre-created Jamboard lessons, as I demonstrated integrating with Drive, as long as you're using something within your Google Drive, so that could be a doc or a PDF or a slide deck, that could become your Jamboard lesson. And as we know, there are tons of resources already out there pre-created. So the monkey kind of worksheet I shared with you today, I found on Teachers Pay Teachers. So if you can just kind of think broadly beyond just the Jamboard slide, what can you integrate into it? And then there's so many resources for that.
And Rachel, I guess kind of looking at this from like an outcome perspective, right? If you've set an assignment for students to do, and actually their outcome is to create a Jamboard or to do something with Jamboard, whether it be complete a worksheet or create some piece of work on there, how might a teacher go around setting that up using Google Classroom, for example?
Yeah, so I think the best thing to do is to sort of structure it in the sense of what it is that you want the pupils to be able to enter. So are you wanting them to respond using sticky notes, or are you going to have visual prompts there? Are you getting them to complete a worksheet? And simply having those set up. And then just sort of one top tip is to name that Jamboard file template and then make a copy of it when you go to upload it to Classroom. That just means you've always got that original copy before you send it out, and then just assigning it through Google Classroom, and either doing that collaboratively, so they make it so they can edit that copy, or make a copy for each student there as well.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely a difference from a teacher using it to kind of work out ideas, right? Like we were talking about the maths equation earlier, then it's different for a student creating content or creating something based on the activity that the teacher wants them to do. So probably just thinking about actually what you want to get out of using Jamboard and why you're using it, again, goes back to choosing the right tool for the job, right? So I think we rounded that one off nicely. Another question that came up was, can you voice over? And I think that was in relation to what you were showing on the slide. So it would be good just to just talk about kind of what we were seeing on that slide, and then maybe some ways that your teachers are currently using Jamboard and how they're getting, how they're delivering that to students. Graham, over to you.
Okay, so perhaps Rachel and I will give you sort of a joint answer on this one. So one of the ways that we're working really hard to try and engage our children is to provide them with recorded lessons that our staff across the trust are working on, and we upload to a Google site, and they can go on and watch it. As we've seen in the chat, there's quite a wide range of ways you can do that. When I was kind of thinking, how are we going to do this on scale for 400 teachers in the easiest way possible, we decided to stick with what we were already using. So we were using Google Meet extensively for kind of hangouts with our children each week, and we were using them for our SLT to sort of engage. So we use Google Meet, and staff present their screen and then conduct their teaching using Jamboard and Google Meet. It's got a screen share function, it's got a record function that saves into Drive, so it's all very slick. There are other ways to do it. Rachel, do you want to come in and talk about that?
Yeah, of course. So as some people have already mentioned in the comments there are things like Screencastify and Loom to be able to quickly do a screen recording as you talk through that lesson. So all it takes you to do is just simply tap on to those extensions, and then simply just go through and annotate using Jamboard there, and then just export that and share that with your learners as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anyone want to add anything in there about kind of delivering lessons right for distance learning with Jamboard and how you might achieve that as a teacher? I think we've covered probably most of them, but Ben, are you seeing anything particularly?
Yeah, so I'm working in FE college as well. So what I'm seeing a lot of students doing and teachers doing is the collaborative planning towards essays, collaborative planning towards projects. So apprentices that might be working 50 miles apart from each other can now collaborate on this one document. That's been a really nice, useful space for that. And for where they would normally probably be sat with Post-its or with a physical pen and felt tips and an A3 piece of paper or a big poster paper, they're now doing that digitally on the whiteboard that is Jamboard.
Awesome. And we also have integration between Google Meet and Jamboard, by the way, and we just launched some new features. We'll post in the chat before we finish off the newest updates that we announced last week. but that should help if you're using Google Meet. We've had another question come in. How would you advise schools to use Jamboard if they're not using Google Classroom, for example? Emma, should I pass that over to you?
Well, as I showed before in terms of sharing, you can share a Jam file directly through email. So that would be one way. You could potentially create something like a Google site, maybe. All you need is the link to the shared file. So if you have a place where you can share that link, you can share the file with your students. So just thinking about where you post work for your students, whether that's a different learning management system, maybe you need to create a temporary site like a Google site, or even directly via email. Any of those ways are ways to share Jamboard.
Awesome, thank you. One more question. I think we'll finish up on this one, and then I'll maybe ask you a question as well. So this is from Tom. Hi, Tom. Are the Leo lesson videos hosted on YouTube or added to the Google site?
At the moment, they're just put on our Google sites because what we wanted is a single website that parents and children could access, and from that, they can kind of engage with all the learning. So on that website, they'll be able to watch the video, there'll be follow-up resources, there'll be the Jamboard there as a link, so they could go and watch that. They could go and look at that Jamboard afterwards. There'll also be sort of links to perhaps some other websites we use, and so for us, it just made sense for it all to be in one place, and it also meant that from a support perspective, we could direct parents to all of the content with one link rather than having, say, the videos here, the resources here, etc.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to throw a curveball question in here that I didn't prepare you for, but if you could choose your favourite feature of Jamboard, what is it and why? And I think I'll go to the trainers first to give Leo a little bit more time to think. Ben, you were first, so you can get the easiest one, right, by going first.
Yeah, I'm going to say auto draw, just because I'm rubbish at drawing, and then when it starts, and when you're demonstrating that and showing that to people, and they start to realize that you don't have to be a great drawer, and it picks up this, it's just that magic of AI. Just definitely
my favorite too. Emma, over to you.
If not auto draw, I would say the sticky note feature, even though it seems a little simple. I love that it's available on all the different versions. And then there's so much versatility, especially if you're thinking about a collaborative document. So a lot of times I'll make a sticky note for each student, have them all join at once, and you can see each of them typing on their sticky note in real time. It becomes a little bit like a Padlet, but with more interaction. So you can enlarge the sticky notes that you want to address. You can sort them after you're finished answering a question. So I think that feature, even though it seems simple, it's really versatile.
Awesome, thank you. Graham.
So mine's a really sad one, and it's from a strategic point of view to say that actually it can work on any device. So if you're working on a Chromebook, if you're working on a Windows laptop, a tablet, etc., it's cross-platform. And whilst that's probably not the most exciting thing in terms of supporting the most amount of people, I'd say that's probably my #1 win.
Awesome. And finally, Rachel.
Mine would definitely be the Drive integration. As a teacher, one of the big things is being able to quickly pull in slides that I've already created and PDF.
Oh, we lost Rachel. Drive integration, I think, is a summary for that one. But yeah, I totally agree. Some really great tips there, and I think hopefully enough to get everyone started. But just wanted to say thank you for everyone. Sorry, Rachel, we lost you there. I see you're back. We did get what you were saying. We just wanted to say thank you for everyone for joining, and to who are on today and we're presenting. Thank you for all of those that are watching. We've got another webinar tomorrow afternoon, so please check out the website that we shared earlier and sign up and join us, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks very much. Bye, everyone.